going to invite Marie up. I'd like, again, just to introduce Marie. I met Marie on occasion in Brussels. So Marie has a 30-year career in the European Commission. Marie's been leading advocate of the future-oriented policies and strategies, most recently to accelerate the energy transition. As the Director for Renewables, Energy and Innovation at DG Energy in the European Commission, she formulated key elements of the Clean Energy Package for all Europeans, a package designed to put energy efficiency first, achieve global leadership in renewable energies, and provide a fair deal for consumers. Marie is currently a member of the Governance Committee of the MAREI, the Marine and Renewable Energy Research Development Innovation Centre, supported by Science Foundation Ireland and coordinated by the Environmental Research Institute at University College Cork. She's also on the steering committee of the International Energy Research Centre, a state-of-the-art facility established to implement new science in the energy space, hosted by the Tyndall Institute in Cork. So I thank you very much, Marie, for coming today, and really looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Firstly, Paddy, thank you very much indeed for that introduction. And can I say a really warm thank you for giving me the invitation to come here today. I lay some claim to an involvement in that I went to school in this region. I went to school in Wexford in Montclody, I won't say long years, but it was 5 years nonetheless. So I have a certain understanding of Wexford and an allegiance to this part of Ireland. It gives me great pleasure to talk about energy, and listening to what you were saying and to the achievements that you have. I said to myself, what could I possibly comment on that would be even remotely interesting after such a presentation? But I want to try and take us back a little bit to the bigger picture of energy and ask ourselves the question, why do we need energy? It's not such a big thing. It's invisible, it's intangible. Why do we need it? And I sometimes feel like St. Patrick when I start a presentation like this. We need energy for 3 reasons. It's like a shower. We get 3 services. We get 3 services from energy. We get thermal services, so our heating and our cooling, and that represents almost half of our energy consumption. We get transport, mobility, from energy, and that's about 1/3 of our energy consumption. And we get power, lights, computers, all of these wonderful things that we get from electricity, from energy, and that's about 20%. And I have to say that when you talk to politicians and financiers and policymakers about energy, the conversation very quickly falls into the space of electricity. And the main reason for that, of course, is that electricity historically in Europe was a national competence and a national ownership model. In Ireland we had the ESB, and they bought, sold and delivered everything to do with electricity for us in Ireland, and the model was very similar in other member states. And therefore it was a matter of concern for the Minister for Energy. Things like heating and cooling didn't concern the politicians quite so much, because heating and cooling happens in your house, or in your office as the case may be. You pay for it. For the most part you don't get government money for it, and it wasn't really an issue of concern as to whether you were getting good value for it or not, whether you were importing the energy from outside of the country and it was or it wasn't secure, and was it giving off greenhouse gas emissions or not. Well, that was a concern. That wasn't part of the Minister's problem, but it was your concern because it was in your house. And transport, oftentimes you'll find energy described as heating and power, and then transport of power, because transport really doesn't like to be considered as part of energy, because they're very special. So what has happened to cause a change in this? Well, obviously, the whole climate action has happened. The decarbonisation agenda has happened. And suddenly, we are required to think about energy in a different way, because energy contributes about 80% of our greenhouse gas emissions. 80%. It's the culprit. It's the criminal in the gang. It's the one that has to get right if we're going to be able to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And not only that, if we're going to achieve the famous target of 80% reduction, this is the 2% climate change figure, which, as you know, people want to even make more strict going forward, if we're going to achieve that 80% reduction by 2050, the fact is that for heating, cooling and power, we have to be at zero emissions. Zero emissions. Because the third part, which is transport, will not be able to achieve it. On our current technology, we don't know any way to put an airplane in the sky other than by using fossil fuels. And it's very possible that by now, between now and 2050, we might find a solution, but we might not. Likewise, when you put a heavy-duty truck or a big ship out into the sea, it's fossil fuels. So the likelihood is that the transport section will not be able to decarbonise by 2050, and that's why the other two parts have to carry the load. And what does that mean for you? And what does it mean for your agency? It means that the first target has to be heating and cooling. Heating and cooling in our homes, in our offices. We have to look at what we're using in terms of the volume of energy and what kind of energy. And I did a little breakout of the figures for Carroll, Kilkenny and Wexford, and the heating source is primarily oil in buildings here. And that is one of the major contributors to the fact that Ireland has the highest greenhouse gas emissions per square metre of any European country. Because we're using oil as our heating vector. So it's a big challenge to get out of oil in terms of heating. And it means a number of things. It means firstly, we have to really apply the energy efficiency principle. First, we have to reduce the amount of energy we need, and then make whatever energy we're using renewable. And you can only do that by ensuring that your building is functioning efficiently. And this goes to what you were doing in Wexford, in the communities. It's about looking at your building, where are you using all of your heat, what can you do about it? And sometimes that's expensive. I don't underestimate it. It can be expensive. And the really awful thing about it is that there's this enormous volume of money available at European and even at national level, and the question is how to make it available to users to get benefit from it. And I think that's where the role of the Energy Agency really comes to the fore. That's their major expertise in facilitating the link between the national situation, be it for access to finance, also the European situation, and your needs, your specific situation in your house or in your office. So heating and cooling is a primary target in terms of ensuring energy efficiency. Transport, we have issues of transport in this country. The relative share of energy that goes into transport is highest in Ireland. It's about 33% on average in Europe. It's 42% in Ireland. 42%. I didn't bring the slide, but the footprint of our cities in Ireland are about 4 times the size relative to population of the footprint of the cities of Europe. We're totally decentralized. And in Ireland, commuting for 150 kilometres is not unusual. So our whole planning structure, our whole housing structure, our industrial structure is following a decentralized model which is transport intensive. And that's an issue that needs to change. Of course, it's difficult to change it, it takes time, but it goes to the heart of investment across the whole country, not into one location where everybody gets sucked into the sink. And this is a difficulty that we have in Ireland, where so much of the investment is in the Dublin region, but rather the decentralisation of investment so that people can stay, live, work in their own region without having very long commutes. It's a fundamental issue. It's not just an industrial policy issue, it's an energy issue, and I won't go down the route of whether it's a social issue or not. But on electricity then, I'd like to come to that one, because this region now is quite distinctive in that you are playing a very real role in the energy transition. Why? Because you're already participating in the first stage of the transition, which is the change of the generation of energy, generation of power. Renewable energy coming out of this region, you already have that present in your region. And I believe, I'm very optimistic, that the Minister will come forward with a microgeneration support mechanism this year. This year, for the last 12 months, of course, this year. And of course, this is the prime region in the country to benefit from it. Solar power here is almost 50% higher than, say, the north of the country, just because of the geographic location. So the opportunities that represents are very real in this area. And I think you're absolutely right, Paddy. This is one of the prime issues to think about and to prepare for going forward in this area. Because I'm sure the incentives will come. I can't see how it could be stopped. It's a reality in most member states in Europe. We're very much lagging behind in this sense, and I believe the Minister will come forward with something in that sense. And it's important because this is a region that can be a generator of power. You can generate power. And what's even more important, you have an access, you have a bridge to export it. The Celtic interconnector that Paddy was talking about, that's at the examination stage now. It will happen. It sounds like a lot of money. It's about 2 or 3 billion euros. On the scale of investment, it's really not an awful lot. And my view is it won't be one interconnector, it'll be at least 2 when it comes on stream. Because the partnership between Ireland and France is very important in the energy space. And I'll tell you why. France primarily relies on nuclear power for its electricity. They have been at a 90%, and the political commitment is to get down to a 50% by 2030. Let's see if it happens. But the issue about nuclear power is that you must cool the reactors. And they use the rivers to cool the reactors. And in the summertime, if there's a shortage of rain, which happens frequently, the rivers are not able to cool the reactors sufficiently. So they have to cut back the reactors. So often, France has a problem with energy supply in the summertime because of the shortage of water to cool the reactors. Ireland has energy that they can supply to meet that gap during that period. The second area where France has a gap is in France, because they've had nuclear power. And you know, when the UK first brought out nuclear power, they developed the storage heater because nuclear power had to run 24/7. What were they going to do with the energy at night? Put it into a storage, heat in people's homes, and the logic is then it would heat the home during the day. The theory was great practice. For any of you who had storage heaters in your house when you were growing up, you know the practice didn't quite deliver on that. And as another illustration, I'm sure you've seen photographs of Europe from space at night time. And the one country you can always see is Belgium. Because Belgium keeps the lights on all of their motorways all night. And the reason for that is because they have 4 nuclear power stations and they need to use the energy at night, so they use it to keep the lights on the motorways. I have to say, having lived in Belgium and driven with a lit motorway, it's very disconcerting to come back and to drive without a lit motorway here in Ireland. But likewise, in France, in wintertime it's a problem because they've had the nuclear power, they have effectively put in electric heating, but it's the old-fashioned resistance heating, you know, the electric bar, some of us unfortunately grew up with, is predominant in the French heating system. And in the wintertime, if it drops by 1 degree, they need an extra 2.4 gigawatts of power for every 1 degree drop. So in the wintertime, they also need power. And again, Ireland can supply it. So the partnership, the match, the fit between Ireland and France is absolutely ideal and gives the justification for this interconnector and provides the bridge for us to be able to export our energy because we have it. You know, the first industrial revolution, we didn't have coal and steel in Ireland, so it passed us by. There might have been other reasons, but it passed us by. But this revolution, we have the natural resources. We have sun. We have wind. In fact, we have the best wind. If you look at the maps, we have the best wind resource in the whole of Europe. So we have an opportunity here. And this can be an industrial renaissance, along with other, obviously, good industries in Ireland, for Ireland to develop and to go forward in this energy transition. So at a macro level, Ireland needs to be centre stage on this, in this energy. transition. But the energy transition can't happen just because a prime minister or a minister or even a government department or even an energy agency wants it to happen. It can only happen if all of you also want it to happen. All of you, your families, your neighbours, your colleagues at work. Because one of the big things about this energy transition is that we are moving from large monopolies into democratization of energy. And that means that everybody has a role to play. Everybody has an opportunity to generate power and energy, to use it themselves, to store it, and to share it in their community, or more generally, through the grid. And this is mind-boggling as a change. This is a very new way to look at energy. Because as we go forward, we will find ourselves electrifying things like transport, famous electric vehicles, but also our heating. So electricity will become very important, and our capacity to produce it ourselves for our own benefit becomes even more important. And that's what the opportunity that will be available to all of us out of this energy transition. And that's where I believe having an energy agency, active, visible, delivering on the ground in your locality, provides a focal point for all of the citizens, all of the population. They can see things are happening. They can ask questions. What is this? What's it all about? They can get answers. But more importantly, should they want to do something, there's somebody there who can help. It's a neutral, competent person who can help. Give them advice, explain the technologies, help them through the torture of forms to fill in, because they are always a torture, and ensure that the product that they ultimately choose to use works efficiently for them. That's essential, because it's not easy, it's a bit complicated, you need help. And that's where the energy agency becomes hugely important in the locality. And I think the combination of the three just strengthens that partnership. It brings together a stronger resource, a more coherent joined-up message within the region, and provides the region a certain amount of visibility in terms of, look at us, look at the dynamism in this area. Come and have a look yourself. It might be for people to live, it might be for people to invest. It presents an opportunity. And I think that's a hugely important message to take from the launch today. This is a region that is going places. This is a region that is delivering both internally and externally. And this is a region that people should be looking at much more closely. Thank you very much indeed.